This cracks me up. Help! My ads aren't working. What am I going to do? What should I be doing? I'm so frustrated. This happens all the time. When people are first-time advertisers, first to paid traffic, I should say new to paid traffic, you're not used to what I call new advertisers flu, which is you work really hard, you put together all this content, your messaging, your product, you put together, a funnel, and you're ready to go out there and start filling up your calendar with tons of appointments and make millions of dollars. It never happens that way. And it shouldn't happen that way. Why? Because you want to start slow to mitigate risk. So what I'm going to do is show you exactly where you should be focusing your time, how to truly know whether or not a campaign is working, what you should do if a campaign is not working, what you should do during launching a new campaign, so you don't make the deadly mistake that I see a lot of entrepreneurs do, which is to kill something that would have been ultimately beneficial and life-changing to you or your business. Okay, so the first step is I'm going to give you 5 simple steps that you should be doing, and also some important things to avoid, some not to do's. Okay, the first thing is to pay attention to the metrics. The reason why, whether we're working with coaching clients or agency clients, building it for you, done for you, the reason we front load all the research, all the foundational work, and the metrics, and this is what I recommend that you do, when you're really clear on the criteria of who you can help, who's likely to get success, who you cannot work with, based on hard metrics, all the emotional stuff goes away. And when you're advertising for yourself, it's the same thing. So when we use this metrics multiplier, there's only a couple numbers we need. What's a customer worth to you? What's a strategy session or a sales engagement or lead or opportunity worth to you? What is a lead worth to your business? Everything else paints a picture of what the ROI is going to be like in the campaign predictively, meaning if you don't have clients yet, you have to look at what you're paying for strategy sessions and how many you're getting. If you don't have strategy sessions yet, you have to look at leads that you're getting, what you're paying for leads and your conversion rate. And if you don't have leads yet, you have to look at things like the click-through rate of your ad, how people are engaging with your ad, the relevancy score. So the first thing is take the emotion out of it. I had an email from a brand new client that was advertising for a few days, and they said, I feel like my leads are going down the toilet. My ad spend's going down the toilet. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe let's look at it. Let's be objective and look at the numbers. And this is someone who was getting a lead conversion rate of 11% of their leads were turning into appointments, which is fantastic. Their appointment to them was worth almost $600. They were paying under $100 for an appointment. Fantastic. So you have to remove the emotion. Let me tell you why. Otherwise, you would be wasting money. So you should start slow with a new campaign. You should be careful. You should only spend a smaller budget in the beginning to test the waters, but you have to understand that means that it's going to take longer, right? You either have time or money. Which do you want to spend the most of every day? If you have a lot of money, what I would do, I don't have a lot of money, but I'm saying if I had the money to spend on ads because I've proven that the funnel works, I'll go and spend $3,000 or $4,000 a day on a whole bunch of different concepts or ads or even funnel assets and see which one works, because I can do that. You can hire someone else to do it if you have money. If you have time, you have to be careful with your money and spend your time on the content and follow-up content and maybe some outreach, which I'll talk about next. So we start slow on purpose. I want you to write this down, the 1% rule. It's a rule that we use to determine the viability of a funnel. And here's how it works. If the worst case scenario happened and you only converted 1% of your prospects into customers, what would the ROI be? I want you to think about that. And folks, this is why, I'm going to talk about this in a second, we tell you to charge more so you can actually help people and the funnel works. You're never going to go and lower your prices or do a low-end product. Okay, that's the first thing people do is maybe I should just do a course for $500 instead of really changing people's lives for $5,000. It's actually harder to charge less. You have to be a better marketer to charge less because you have to be able to pay incrementally less for a lead. You have to be doing split testing and multivariate testing and be way better marketer. It's way harder to have someone stick with you on a 50 or 60-minute webinar and sell them remotely than it is to get on the phone with them and build rapport and actually enroll them, okay? I'll talk about that in a minute. But the big picture is know your numbers and know where you should be placing your time. In most cases, the advice is do nothing. Like if you don't have several hundred leads and you don't have a really good feel on the percentage of those leads that are booking on your calendar, which only needs to be 5%, then the answer is to do nothing. So, you can only look at, this is actually correlated to tip number 2, is know where you should be spending your time when it comes to troubleshooting. look, you can only solve for the metric that you have. In other words, if you don't have an ROI to measure because you haven't closed any new deals, then you have to look at how many appointments you're getting and what you're paying for an appointment. And if it meets the criteria, if you're willing to pay $250 for a strategy session or $100 for a strategy session or whatever, if that's what the cost you're willing to pay is because you've done the math, then let it ride, okay? And solve for where you are in the funnel. Okay, so if I don't have any appointments yet, then I'm going to look at lead metrics. What am I paying per lead based on what I'm willing to pay? What's my conversion rate? And if that looks good, I'm going to leave it alone. If I don't have leads yet, I'm going to reverse engineer and look at ad metrics like click-through rates, relevance, and frequency. Okay, so you have to know where to spend your time. This correlates into tip number 3. This is really, really important. So remember the 1% rule. Don't get emotional. Look at the metrics only. If you're hitting your target metrics, there's usually nothing wrong. There's plenty of other stuff you could be doing, which I'll talk about in tips number 4 and 5. So number 2, know where to troubleshoot. Number 3 is focus on conversations over conversions. Everyone talks about making money online and conversion rates and everything, but our business changed when we changed our mantra, our focus to the purpose of marketing is not to generate a conversion, it's to generate a conversation. So you can't sit back and wait for your dinner to knock on your door. You have to get your snow boots on, go out into the woods, and if you're hungry enough, you have to go take down a deer or some tofu if you're a vegetarian. You have to go get it, okay? So what does that mean? It means focus on a conversation. We see people say, hey, I got 200 leads and a few appointments, nobody signed up. The leads aren't good or whatever. Well, how do you know that? Talk to them. Pick up the phone. Send an email. So pick up the phone. People say I don't have their phone number. Well, this is why we do this. Request their phone number and the lead form. Then the experts would say, well, you're going to pay more for a lead if you ask for their phone number. Great. Pay more for the right leads. Weed out the ones that aren't qualified. The ones that aren't serious, that aren't willing to give you their information, you don't want to talk to. But ask for their phone number. And now so this client had 54 leads. I'm like, great, guess what? You have 54 people to call. You can say, hey, I noticed you got my cheat sheet on X, Y, and Z currency. I just want to touch base and see if you have any questions about it and introduce myself. I really appreciate it. Imagine how they would freak out. No one's really that caring. Is that scalable? It doesn't matter. You're not here to scale. You're here to launch and prove that you have a scalable business. It's not time to scale. Call people. Remember, you have time or money. If you have a ton of money, you can spend it on testing the ads and afford to pay for the information. If you have more time than money, go get the information. No one lacks resources. They only lack resourcefulness. Pick up the phone and call them. What if you sent those 54 or 504 people an email? Hey, just curious, what's your relationship status if you're a relationship coach? Oh, if you're an advertising agency, hey, just curious, how many leads are you getting in your business right now, and where are they coming from? We're just doing a quick survey. I'm just curious. Oh, are you a life coach or a business coach? What's your biggest frustration right now with diet? Hey, I'm creating some new content. I'd like to know, what you'd like to learn about. Just respond in 1 or 2 words to the topic, and I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Hey, I noticed you're in Cleveland. I grew up in Cleveland too. By the way, what type of coaching are you doing right now? Start a conversation via email, via messenger, via the phone. Every lead is worth something unless you don't do anything with them and engage them, okay? Tip number 4, supplement with outreach. This is really important. I look at our model that we use here. We call this the launch map. We use this for coaches, agencies, and consultants, and it basically has all of their foundational framework they have to do. It's basically your whole business plan in a box. It's like, what numbers do you have to hit, which I'm saying, pay attention to these, not emotion. What problem do you solve? What friction or struggles prevent that client from solving that problem? Why it matters to them? How important is it for them to solve it? And then what is your message? What segment of the market are you going to serve? Who do you accept? Who do you reject? Then we productize your knowledge, your program, your services with our signature solution. Super, super important. But then when we look at the actual process, the client acquisition process, we run an ad to an opt-in where we give either an image of your whole signature solution or a piece of it. You do an authority amplifier where you give them a quick promise. You talk about those 3 struggles. You talk about the steps that you and your clients and every successful avatar on the planet uses, and you have a call to action if they want to get clear on how this applies to their life or business. Get in your calendar. Well, guess what? If some people don't convert, And if you can't make this work with paid traffic, then that ties into step 4, supplement with outreach. So let's just say you can't afford $50 or $100 a day in ads. Great. Are there forums that your avatar hangs out on? Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, meetups. Your avatar's out there. What would happen if you asked these same questions to the public? Like, you have to burn the ships, okay? You have to burn the ships. This is my burning the ship image. Super important. You can't just sit there and wait. It's resourcefulness. Like, if I had to get 10 clients to feed my child this week, I could. So could you. If you had to, you could. You just have to believe it. Why? Because I can go on Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, say, hey, quick question. What's your biggest frustration right now being a single parent or being a local lawyer? What's your biggest frustration with your diet right now? In health groups, moms groups, whoever your avatar is. All the people that answer a poll, you direct message them and say, hey, thanks for responding. I build rapport. Hey, I notice you're also in Minneapolis, X, Y, and Z. By the way, what type of coaching are you doing? You're just starting that conversation. You don't need paid traffic. If you can only afford a little bit of paid traffic, then you have more time. Go out and do outreach. Is it not scalable? It is scalable, because proof of concept, getting this right, getting clients, getting appointments is what you're trying to prove. Then you can scale it. Then you can have someone else do the outreach. You can hire an agency to do it. You can hire a sales team to call all of your leads. But you need to block and tackle and be a guerrilla marketer and get the F off your butt and stop waiting and saying something's broken, because there's nothing broken. For most people, the numbers are already there, and if not, it takes small tweaks to move mountains. Go out there and bridge the gap with your own efforts. Supplement with outreach. Tip number 5, super important. This 5th tip is super, super important, is that the ROI in almost every successful coaching or agency funnel comes in the follow-up. That's why part of what we do with our clients is we don't just say, okay, cool, let's just keep running traffic and wasting all the leads. We got 1% or 2 or 3% to convert. Let's just waste the rest. No, we take every single step of your signature solution and we look at the top search queries that people are using to solve those micro problems. So basically, you solve one big problem for people that's made up of 9 smaller problems you solve. You reverse engineer that, and what questions are people asking online in groups and search queries on Quora and book reviews on Amazon and on Google AdWords. Like, what are people asking about for each of these steps? Then we create content that does what? Every week we create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of content. But even if you did one a week, hey, one of the top questions I get about lead magnets. What's the best type of lead magnet for a local business? Cool. Let me answer it. Here's the, what's the best type of ad, video ads or image ads for Facebook for consultants, whatever. Here's I'm going to solve this in 1 minute. Here's the 3 struggles people have. Here's the steps we use. Here's where it lives in the greater system. And if you want help, get on our calendar. So this Signature Solutions series is where all the ROI happens. So if your ads aren't working or you're waiting to see how your ads are working, there's a ton of stuff you can do. That's step 5. Go create that content. Imagine in 12 weeks from now, when every new person that enters into your system here, your process, is going to get 12 weeks worth of content. Do you think they're more likely to buy and have more trust and lower buying resistance and get on your calendar? Of course. So every piece of content you create has value. It's an asset if you do it the right way, if you provide context to go with your content. So let me talk about some critical don't do's, and then hopefully this is helpful and you can just chill out and understand that you're on the right path. So for the do-dos, I said do-do. Number 1, pay attention to the metrics, remove the emotion. Remember the 1% rule. We're starting slow on purpose to mitigate risk, but in many cases, doing nothing is the answer. If you don't have enough metrics to know how many strategy sessions you get out of 500 leads or how many you're closing out of 20 strategy sessions, wait. It's probably working better than you think. It just needs more time, because the opposite is to spend a whole bunch of money, and that's when you're risking it. So, be patient. Number 2, know where to troubleshoot. Which part of the funnel should you be looking at? Is it not getting enough? You're not closing enough appointments into clients. You're not getting enough leads onto your calendar, or you're not advertising to the right audience and getting the right ad metrics. Right? You're not converting enough leads, traffic into leads. Know where to troubleshoot. In many cases, it's nowhere, but if there is something wrong, it's going to be one thing at a time. The one metric that's not working for you, reverse engineering. Number 3, focus on a conversation, not a conversion. The purpose of marketing, as we see it, is to generate a conversation, not a conversion. Focus on that. Call them, email them, ask them questions, retarget them with questions with value. Number 4, supplement with outreach. Cool, not enough stuff coming in, go out and hunt. You know, setting bear traps in your driveway is not working for you, go out there with a bow and arrow and make it happen, okay? Forums, groups. If you know who your avatar is, the second thing you need to know is what watering hole are they gathering at. Go there and start a conversation where they are. Number 5, focus on the follow-up content. That's super, super critical, mission critical. A couple quick don'ts. Really important. Do not lower your price. Here's why. We had a conversation in our elite mastermind. One person said, I'd ran my funnel for a few weeks. This happened. Another person said, me too. And they both said, you know what we're going to do is just sell something really cheap instead. That's a mistake for many, many reasons. But the most important reason has nothing to do with my opinion. It's fact. The numbers don't work in your favor. I want you to write this down. You got the 5 tips. You got the 1% rule. Write this down. The lower the price of your product, the better you have to be at marketing, the more skill it takes. Why? Well, because if you're selling a product for $5,000, and that means you're willing to pay $200 for a strategy session, and you're willing to pay $12 for a lead. If you're selling a product for $500, then you're only willing to pay $20 for a strategy session and like $2 for a lead. It doesn't work, or $1.20 for a lead. The numbers don't work out. There's more friction. So along with the 1% rule, there's also the 3% rule, which is just that roughly 3% of your traffic converts. I mean, sometimes it's 1% to 5%, but it takes almost the same energy and effort to sell somebody a $100 product as it does a $1,000 product, as it does a $5,000 product. In other words, you don't get 50 times the conversion if you sell something for $1 than you do for $5,000. It's usually a couple of percentage points, right? So people that are driving traffic right to sales letters to sell low-end products and cheap WSO stuff, you know, they're like, oh, I'm getting an 8, 10, 12% conversion rate. People that are selling $3,000 to $5,000 coaching programs, I'm getting a 3 to 5% conversion rate. Well, guess what? Do the math and look at the numbers. It's harder to sell a low-end product. If you can't master a few basic things, you're not going to master some technical things. Like you're trying to do a webinar instead, and you're trying to drive people to some pre-webinar content. You're trying to get them to show up. You're trying to get them to stay for an hour. Then you're trying to get them to spend money without actually talking to anybody. That's way harder. And you also don't help them as much, which is the social proof thing. Like, go work with 1 or 2 people one-on-one first. Get your system down. Create a case study around that. That case study will be worth 6 or 7 figures to you because you charge people enough to work with them and help them get results. So the less people pay, the less committed they are, the less help you can afford to give them. So it's a race to the bottom to lower your prices. A lot of people look at what we've done, like, but you have this lower end product that sells in the higher end products. Yeah, we got the high end product right for 2 years, and then we added the lower end product much later. You have to do the right things in the right order. The biggest final not to do, the don't of this, is don't forget your why. This is really important. You're trying to learn a skill set here that once you get it right, can feed yourself, your employees, your family, their families, your clients. Like, it's like the Terminator analogy. I say, like, if you drop me off, this would be very ugly, but you drop me off naked in the middle of Detroit, and I have to go get my motorcycle and my jacket, I can go do that. Like, in other words, it feels good to know that no matter what happens in the economy or in the digital landscape, those core principles that I've taken the time to learn, I have that resourcefulness. I have the ability to go and generate a business quickly that can generate clients, okay? So it should be hard, okay? We're trying to make it really simple. We're not trying to make it really easy. There's a huge difference, okay? Easy is a measure of effort, and simplicity is a measure of complexity. So simple is the opposite of complex. So these are the simple principles. These 9 steps you have to get right, but it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to remake a video or make a whole bunch of content or be uncomfortable calling leads or whatever. But if you want it bad enough and you're focused on the why, the worst thing you can do is quit and get emotional and take all the time and effort you're putting into something and you're getting 90% across the finish line. You're like, no, maybe I'll try a different thing. Don't do that. Trust the process, trust the metrics, trust yourself. And pretty soon when you start closing deals, you're going to look back and feel like a fool. If you've closed deals and been through this process, help other people in the comments, please. Just help people understand that everyone has that imposter syndrome and that fear and that doubt and that intolerance for risk. And sometimes you don't have the money, but you have the resources and you have the time. So stay the course. Cheers. Make it happen, folks.